One of the basic programming structures is called the loop structure. And a loop basically has just two main parts. The condition, which is here, which basically tells us, do we take the loop or not? So yes, we take the loop. No, we don't take the loop. And it's got some subtask here, which is called the loop body. And basically, this can appear in different places, but basically it says this is the thing you're going to keep running over and over and over again until you're done with it. So that's the basic idea, and there's a couple different ways we can implement it. In C, you've got two different basic loop structures. One called the while loop, which is represented here on the left, and that follows exactly the way we just talked about it, where first you check a condition, you run a subtask, and then you loop. And it's got this syntax where you've got the while, you put your condition inside these parentheses, and this might be like x is greater than 0, so is it positive or not? And then you run your subtask here, and that's going to be between these curly braces. And so you can have multiple tasks within the loop, but so it's just some set of subtasks. On the other hand, you've got your do while loop. This says, hey, I want to do something first, check my condition, and then start looping. And so the idea of the do while loop is if you know you want to do something at least once, you use it. And so similar syntax, you say do, what am I going to do at least once? And then I write while my condition is true. One important thing to notice between the difference between do while and while is this semicolon here. This guy is easy to forget because you don't need it in the while. But to better understand these, let's go through an example and walk through how this executes in code. So we've got two functionally equivalent while loops where basically we're going to initialize our variable, we're going to print, and then we're going to increment. That's very simple basic gist of what we're going to do. With both of these, we're going to see how they behave and what happens. So we'll start with the while. First, I'm going to execute my initialization. So I'm going to initialize x is equal to 0, and that's going to create this variable on my heap. And then I'm going to go into my while loop. I'm going to check my condition, is 0 less than 2? Well, yes. So we're going to follow the true branch, and we're going to print x equals 0 to the screen. And then we're going to increment x, so it now becomes 1. And then we'll take our loop back, and now we check is 1 less than 0, or less than 2, sorry. It is, so we say true. We print the value to the screen, then we increment our value x to 2, and then we go back up here, is 2 less than 2? No. So then we say false, and we exit our loop, and we're done. Do while loop does almost the exact same thing, except with a slightly different feel to it. So let's look at it. We are going to initialize our x is equal to 0, and then we're going to check our do. So we're going to do whatever is inside the brackets at least once. So we print x to the screen, and then we increment our x to 1, and then now that we've incremented, we check for the first time, is 1 less than 2? Yes, it is, so we are going to loop right on back. We're going to print our next value, we're going to increment x up to 2, and then we check again. Is 2 less than 2? No, so it's false. We're going to leave our loop, and we're going to end our program. So you're probably asking yourself, why have while and do while if they pretty much do exactly the same thing? So let's look at an example where they actually do something a little bit different. So let's change our condition from x is less than 2 to x is less than 0. So same basic program structure, but we're just changing our condition to 0 from 2. All right, our while loop. We initialize our variable, put it onto the heap. Now x is equal to 0. So when we check our condition, x is less than 0, it's false the very first time, so we're going to bypass our entire loop body and just end our program. Simple enough, nothing prints, we're done. That's the while loop. Let's look at the do while implementation of this loop as well. So here we've got our initialization. We go into our do, but because it's the do, we have to do the loop body at least once. So we print x is equal to 0 onto our screen, increment x to 1, and now we check, is 1 less than 0? Absolutely not. So it's false. And now we move on, we finish our program, and we move on. And so despite the fact that they're very similar same initial conditions, same condition code here, we get different outputs. One, while ends with x equals 0 without printing, whereas do while ends with x equal to 1 while printing x equals 0. One last thought. It's really important to remember that with loops, you need to create a condition that can at some point be falsifiable. So if I put like 1 is equal to 1 in my loop, I'm just going to keep looping and looping and looping and looping infinitely until forever. I'll never be able to leave. And so you need to make sure that your condition can be falsifiable and that your subtasks will falsify it. Otherwise, you have an endless, infinite loop.